Yo, what's up, y'all? So, I wanted to try out something new. So, on my channel, I want to basically create it. The reason why I call it CMJ World is because I wanted to create a world type substance of just content. And one of the things I wanted to cover ever since I branded it CMJ World was I wanted to cover music. And I mean, I've done that from time to time, but I wanted to do it on a consistent basis. I'm getting back into music and, just learning the culture over again. That's what it feels like, because I've been so out of touch. I only listen to certain artists, certain type of music and stuff like that. I don't really have a broad, view of just music. So I'm trying to do that. And one of the things I wanted to do on my channel is that I have these ideas for different podcasts. Now, I know you're thinking like, oh, well, you could just have one podcast and just do everything on that podcast. But I kind of wanted to separate it, have just different identities and, stuff like that. And just kind of like I wanted to do different ideas for different things. So this is the first episode of the Play One podcast, and I'm going to have reviews for music that's going to come out as soon as next week. I got a few songs that I want to review, and there's going to be some on here as well as going to be just regular solo videos for like the song reviews. I'm going to be doing album reviews, mixtapes, and stuff like that. And I don't know how often the album reviews are going to come, but I'm going to try and have them as often as I'll say every 2 weeks or something like that. But in any case, with the first episode, I wanted to talk about two things. I wanted to keep it short and sweet because I haven't really been putting out too much content, and I'm not trying to overload people who are listening to this and all that stuff. And if you are listening, thank you. And so that I'm not talking too much, the two things that I'm covering is, for one, over the weekend, there was some stuff that had dropped. One was an interview and another was a story that I wanted to talk about or whatnot. One of the interviews was Eminem being interviewed by Crooked I or King Crooked on his show on YouTube called Crook's Corner, and it was just basically him talking about the album and just his mind state right now and just certain things and his outlook on things now as an artist who's went from one point and grown to this grown to where he's at now. And so I just wanted to like give my thoughts on just the interview, and watching it's an hour long, but it's a really good interview. I honestly enjoyed this interview more than the Sway interview on when KAMIKAZE had came out. I honestly enjoyed this one. I mean, that one was good, but I have my thoughts on KAMIKAZE, which I am going to give a full album review, which I've already did a review, an in-depth review, but I kind of want to give an overall just kind of like, I don't know, just a regular review on Revival, because even just listening to it now, it's certain stuff that I want to just do a regular review. And plus that in-depth review was long as hell. So if you have time to read, listen to it, I'm going to put it down in the link in the description below. But yeah, so I really did like this interview, mainly because it wasn't like a interviewer interviewing a artist or whoever. This is like, it felt like a conversation, because King Crooked I, whatever you want to call him, he is a rap artist. He is an artist, and just in the way he was talking to him, he didn't have notes. He was just having casual conversation with a fellow rapper. And that's basically what it felt like. I mean, of course, it did sound, you get that interview vibe, but it felt more of a conversation. And just how his thoughts is and everything goes. And I wanted to just go over some of the key things that he basically brought out in there. And one of the things that I was really interested, me being an artist myself, it was like a lot of things I felt interested in. And what they were talking about was the fact that they were talking about rhyme schemes. And how like certain rappers go on, their records and do this and do that. And a lot of times it don't have to matter, like, if it sounds like a song or, chorus hooks and all that stuff. But really a lot of times that matters is just your flow and your rhyme scheme and how you doing this and how you can like match these words up with that and have all these syllables and stuff like that. And not have it sound too jumbled up, but it comes out artistic. And I felt like that because, like I said, I am an artist. It's one thing that I don't really boast because I don't really do music like that. But that was one thing that caught my ear. And just listening to a person like Eminem describe what he likes about, certain rhyme schemes. And it don't have to be the most lyrical miracle type dude. It could be like the simplest stuff, but still catches the ear. And that's really what I'm saying. Like, I do love complex raps, but if you can word a sentence or your bars in a certain type of way to where it's effective, I do feel that. You got artists out there that that does that, like J. Cole. He can do the lyrical miracle, but also he can have just regular bars where he's just talking to you, and he's not doing nothing crazy, but just in the way he words it is crazy. It's good. And just how they were describing certain things, I'm like, that's some of the stuff that I like in my raps. Like, if I listen to a Royce record, or if I'm listening to an M record, Lupe Fiasco's, people like that know how to flip that stuff. It's like, if I don't get it, I love it. You could say some like punchlines that I won't get after the 50th time, but the 51st time that I've heard it, it's like, wow, how did I not get that? So I love just hearing like their perspective and them breaking down complex raps and how they look at, certain videos on YouTube, and they admire people who can recognize that, who have the ear for that can like break down their records. But like, I didn't think that people, knew what I was doing with this. And so they also was talking about Eminem's features and how he came across certain artists and how he, just wanted to do that. And he was talking about Young M.A because she was the first artist to be, heard on the record, which his album is called Music to Be Murdered By. And he was talking about how he went down the rabbit hole of just listening to her music, and how he heard one thing, then YouTube went to another thing. He just watched all her videos, and he's like, yo, I gotta have her on there. And it's just, I don't know, like, I look at Eminem as like a person, you can't help but to put him at a high stature. So when you're like looking at a person that's being your idol, or somebody that you just really admire and stuff like that, like you want to be as far as like what they do and everything else, and reach that level of success that they are at, it's like looking at them, it's like you put them on the highest pedestal, but yet they still look down at people below them and be like, yo, man, I really like this dude, and be blown away. You wouldn't think that Eminem would be blown away with someone that's not lyrically, that can't lyrically match him and stuff like that. And I'm not saying anything about Young M.A. I haven't really heard her music, so I can't say it. But I'm pretty sure that she can't like out rap Eminem. Or maybe she can. I don't know. I haven't listened to music. But just offhand. But in any case, I love just how Eminem just breaks it down. Like this whole interview that he's had, he put out he's just showing that he's a regular fan of hip hop. I love how he's showing the love, and more than likely, if you talk to Eminem, he probably won't put himself above Young M.A, like an artist like Young M.A. He's looking at it as like, I do music, I'm a fan of music, she does music, she's a fan of music, we're on the same level, we're both artists. And I love that he can look at it like that, because a lot of things that a lot of us rappers get wrong is that like, I'm better than him, and it is a competition, it's a competitive industry, and just like culture, a lot of times good, a lot of times bad. But at the same time, if we can all look at it as like, yo, we all doing the same thing, let's get this money, let's put out some good music, good quality music, and let's go ahead and do this. Let's just show our love. Like, that's really good. And I love that he shows that all throughout the interview. Like, you get that from him. As well as like he's talking about how he wanted to do a feature with Black Thought and everything else, and he was talking about his listening sessions on Saturday, how like a lot of new music dropped by Friday, so like Saturday he's just listening to a whole bunch of artists, so they're kind of like, man, I gotta go ahead and get my game up, so. And he was talking about the Crook'S that I had mentioned, the top number one he has 10 top number ones on the Billboard 200, and he was just talking about how honored he feel, and he related to like meeting his idol, one of his idols, and he was talking about the ride that he had with LL Cool J, where when he got done with relapse or whatever, how LL just rode around with him up in his car, and all they did was listen to his listen to Relapse and all that stuff, and how like that, how much that meant to him, and him being just dumbfounded by just the thought of he couldn't imagine that one thing can happen. That's like me riding around in the car with like M or Budden or Royce or somebody like that I admire lyrically as an artist, and they're listening to my record. That's how I look at it. As well as like of course, like like I said, he talked about the love for the culture and all that stuff. And he also was talking about something about rappers who intimidate him. People that like, you would think that Eminem would be an artist where he could just go in the booth and just start writing down stuff. But, he still gets intimidated by certain artists. And he mentioned Royce, he mentioned CROOK'S, and he also mentioned Tech Nine. And more than likely there's other artists, but those are the artists that he mentioned or whatever when he was talking about that. And it's like, man, a person like Eminem can get, intimidated by, an artist that a lot of people may not view them as lyrical as him. That just shows just how human he is. Even though, he is this top tier rapper, he still gets intimidated. Like, he even mentioned about, like, at one point, I don't know at what part of his life is, what more than likely it was before he actually got big, but when he listened to Tretch, one of his, like, you can say that's one of his favorite rappers. When he listened to a Tretch record, it made him want to just stop and give up rapping. And he had to snap out of it. He said Proof had to snap him out of it. Like, no, you gotta do it. And he was just so intimidated, and he still gets intimidated today. And that just shows like he has that human side, and that just made me think like, yo, man, can I get to that level? So it's like, it's dope. But he also talked about longevity and how it feels, and just his outlook on the game. And he does mention like people that he feels are good enough to like carry on like legacies that, I mean, these are not his words, but simplified, like just carry on everything musically and hold down the game. He mentioned Kendrick Lamar, he mentioned Cole, he mentioned the Baby, and just he talks about like just how he likes their rhymes and everything else, and how they come with their deliveries and all that stuff. And he does mention about being self-conscious, like I mentioned, like as well as he is his biggest critic, and it's just with me being an artist, like I do like relate to that, because I am my own biggest critic. I would say to people, like, I'm very critical. You can listen to a song of mine and be like, damn, you snap, man, this cold, and I'll be thinking like, I don't like it that much, or it's okay, I could have went better, I could have did this, I could have did that. And that's just you being your own biggest critic, and that's what Eminem is. And he also basically talks about, he replies, or not even replies, but responds to Lord Jamar's comments of him being a guest in hip hop, and he says, yeah, I am a guest in hip hop. He said he's never said that he was the king of anything or whatnot, and he just said that like he is a guest in hip hop. He's never went at him and said that like he's not a guest, and all this stuff. So I mean, that could be debated. Somebody could pull up something and blah blah blah, but that could be debated. But he did say that he doesn't feel like, he does feel like he is a guest in hip hop's house. And also he talks about his top 10 list from he does talk about his top 10 list, or the top 10 list that a lot of people have and everything else, and how like a lot of times they might not include him or give him like the put him at a stature that he feels like he may needs to be, or how he feel other people might be. And also he makes a kind of he says he makes a comment that I can relate to about how like a lot of people, when they make these lists, the top 15 MCs of all time or top 50 MCs of all time, a lot of times, I mean, and those lists can change because that's subject. Like that's what's the word I'm looking for? That is a. I mean, that's just in your opinion. It's not the word I'm looking for, but it's just your opinion. It's a. God dang it! What's the word? I can't think of it. But in any case, everybody has an opinion on who the best, even if it's your favorite or you think just by what they do is the best. People are gonna have their things. People might think that Big is better than Pac. Some people might think that Pac is better than Big. Blah blah. However you think, Jay Z and Nas, whoever you might think is better, who might be at this number and that number. Everybody is it's the subjectivity of just music and everything else. And he makes the comment about like a lot of people confused with like who's the best with who's your favorite, and I can agree with that. I really do agree with that. As well as like he like I said, well hold on, let me go through my notes. Yeah, and he talks about being a producer, and it mentioned like Crooked mentions that he does have a lot of producing credits, but a lot of it gets overlooked because a lot of it is mainly in-house between like Eminem using his own beats, or he may end up giving beats to like people that is like really around him, like a 50 or a Royce or Slaughterhouse when they was around, and stuff like that. But I mean, he don't really go out and you don't really see an Eminem produced record that Nicki Minaj is rapping on, or Drake or somebody else is rapping on, which I really do think he should branch out and do that, because it's like it's a lot of stuff that Eminem has done in his career that you would think he could be way bigger. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day. But in any case, yeah, and he also talked about Royce and how Royce was becoming a producer and what he was telling Royce and everything else. And it was just really like interesting to hear, as well as they mentioned certain tracks, the Godzilla track and Juice WRLD, R.I.P. and everything else, as well as Crook wanted to ask him what his favorite track on the album was, and he really didn't give no answer, but they ended up getting into the Darkness track and asking, like, Crook asked him, was you concerned about the backlash? And M just said that he was more concerned about the message and what he was saying, because certain stuff needs to be said regardless on how other people feel. And I agree totally. And he wanted to talk about the gun laws and in Darkness, and he kind of got a little bit more in depth into that, as well as he was talking about his top 9 list of his favorite rappers that he had mentioned on Till I Collapse. And he said that like he hates that he put them in that order because he feels like they can be switched, or in this and that, but he did it mainly kind of like because of the rhyme scheme and all that stuff. But he was talking about that like that could be changed. Certain MCs can be added to there, like Cole or Kendrick or Joyner and all that stuff. And Joyner, he was excited. He went on Twitter and basically left and tweeted out just how excited he was that M even mentioned him, that he looks at him as like a favorite artist of his or whatnot. And then he talks about punchlines and delivering serious or non-serious punchlines, and how a lot of times critics take out like this punchline like, this is stupid, why you say that? And he's like, a lot of times you don't want to rap with a message. Sometimes you just want to rap to rap. And so a lot of times, like, if you want to throw in a punchline like that and be stupid and be silly with it, go ahead and do it. And so he just like, put in like, man, they just kind of really just overanalyze shit, basically. As well as he talks about how like he doesn't go through like comments anymore on like the internet, and I'm talking about him because he just feels like there's no point in doing it. It's people gonna say what they're gonna say. It's not gonna affect you. It's just gonna put you in the off mood if it's negative. So he strays away from that. And then, it was a few other things, lasting things. He was talking about Crook had asked him some fan questions that fans wanted to know about him and all that stuff. And they talked a little bit about Kobe and like just how his thoughts was about him. And just, I mean, and that really was the interview. Now, I'm giving just like a quick review of it and everything else, and just giving my thoughts. I actually really thought it was a really good interview. If you guys haven't heard it, check it out. It's on YouTube. Like I said, I will put the link in the description below. Go check it out. It's an hour listen, but it's really good once you get into it, and I really think that you should. And so, the other thing that I want to talk about is one of my favorite artists. I'm actually talking about two of my favorite artists, Eminem and now JoJo. JoJo is an artist that she is my favorite singer. She's been my favorite singer for years. Like I say, ever since she came out. I think ever since I got used to her first album, she became my favorite singer because I just love her music. And a lot of people just, if an artist isn't mainstream, they think that artist fell off or just something happened to them and this and that. But JoJo is one of those artists that's been going strong. She's been had her struggles throughout her career, but she's been putting out music for years and stuff. And she's put out 3 studio albums, 2 mixtapes, and 3 EPs, I believe. Yeah, 3 EPs. And then she has some like kind of some leaked music come out as well. And so basically they did this documentary. It was like a short documentary, like 26 minutes, not even that long. And just kind of like analyzing JoJo's story just from beginning to now. And just, it's a short. It's not like a long, it doesn't take too long. It's just cut from this to that, but it highlights a lot of the big points in her life, from like the highs and the lows. And it talks about just, she's talking about, I mean, and she's kind of like being interviewed and telling her story and everything else. And it was actually pretty good. I really like it. And it's JoJo, so I'm biased. So what the hell? And she talks about just, and I'm not gonna run it down like I just did because I spent too much time on that. But she talks about a lot of the stuff that went on throughout, just like some of the stuff, a lot of the stuff I knew. A lot of the stuff I knew because I followed her career, like not super, super closely, but I do follow it like really close. So a lot of the stuff that she talked about, I knew. A lot of the stuff she talked about in there, I didn't know. And she goes from just how she got a deal, what she did first, the auditions that she took, and just, singing was just something that she wanted to do at a young age. Like she knew that this is what she wanted to do. And she wanted to do it by any means necessary. So she ended up getting picked up at a young age and signed to a deal called Blackground Records. And like she puts it basically spells it out that they kind of screw her, and that, and just how they locked her down in her thing, and how the record label just kind of like fell apart, but yet they still owned her, her music, her voice, and stuff like that. So anything that she did, she couldn't do. And she wasn't able to put out music because of this and blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of like hard times. And she talks about that in depth, and just kind of like the bad parts, and, just how she fell into an addiction, into drugs and substance abuse, drinking and stuff like that. And how she would just go around making out with random people at clubs and stuff like that. And it just had me thinking, like, why couldn't I be at the club and be one of the guys that she was making out with? No, let me not play with that. But in any case, it's just, that was one thing I didn't know. And I don't think it was like public or anything like that. She didn't get like arrested or DUIs or anything like that. But that was just crazy just to know. But it's understandable, because it was like you couldn't get out your deal. Your career kind of veered off because your record label and what they were doing. And then she was told at one point that like she wasn't up to par with her body, so she was trying to get skinny so that she can hopefully get music put out and look better. And she even kind of like talked about it a little bit in like some of her old music. I remember on her mixtape, what was it? I don't know how to pronounce it. Agrope. It was like named after her dog. And on the first track, it's called Back to the Beginning. And toward the end of it, it said, if you put your titties out, then I'll put your record out. And when I heard that, even then, I kind of knew that was relating to her. and it made it sound personal. So I knew that that was one thing that they were telling her and everything else. And then, she's mentioned it several times. And it was just like, I understood why she went through the dark parts in her life and why she did what she did, like I said, with the drinking and substance abuse and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff like that can really put you out. And she talks about how she bounced back from that and how she got out her deal, and then everything else after that, her putting out her third album, kind of a little bit what went on with that, and her getting her own record label and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff they kind of touch on. They didn't go through it all the way, like going to depth and like how she came up with the name Clover for her record label and stuff like that. And she mentioned that, even in her song Music, which is one of my favorite JoJo songs, top 5 for me. It's crazy. She mentioned that her father died, and up in the in the documentary, I guess you could call it a documentary, but the docu series, whatever you want to call it. In the video, she mentioned that her father, that's basically what killed him, is that, he had a substance abuse problem, and he ended up dying in his sleep. And that was one of the things that made her change her thing. And, and she didn't really touch on it too much. I would have really loved, I ain't gonna say love, but I really would have loved that they kind of touched on a little bit more stuff. Her record label, her father, because that's a really important, because I know what it's like to lose a parent. I know what it's like, And, it was certain things that I wish that they would have extended a little bit more, because when you're watching it, it does go from one thing to the next, to next, to next, to next. But at the same time, it's trying to put a lot of information in under 30 minutes, like this podcast. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It gave me some insight on JoJo and just her love for music and just how she was and how she is, and that made me just love her even more, And I just want to say that, if you are one of those people that haven't really heard anything from JoJo ever since Leave, Get Out, or Too Little, Too Late and stuff like that, and just thought she fell off, go check her out. Because you got JoJo Siwa on there, just put JoJo Levesque, or Joanna Levesque, and her music will pop up, and just listen to just random songs. Listen to the song Music, one of my favorite songs. Another one of my favorite songs from her, Reckless. She does a cover over Anita Baker's song, Caught Up in the Rapture Love, which is one of my favorite songs, top 5. I just love that song. And she got some other songs that I feel like a lot of people should listen. Who's Gonna Fight For Me? That's one of the leaked songs. Paper Airplanes, one of my favorite songs of hers. Hollywood Disaster. I know a lot of people have heard that. Guardian Angel. It's a lot of songs. Even songs off her mixtape. She got a song, Save My Soul. And Say Yes, or Say Love. That's what it's called. Say Love. It's countless songs that she has out that, I feel like a lot of you guys should check. Matter of fact, I'm going to put everything in the description below. That's what I'm going to do. But like I said, if you get the time, listen to JoJo, and like Eminem, just go down the rabbit hole. Listen to this song, listen to that song, listen to that song. The song Joanna kind of briefly talks about everything that's in this, up in the thing. And that was another thing. I would love to hear her talk about her acting, go deep depth into that. But that was one of the things she touched on in the song Joanna. And she got a new song that she had recently put out called Sabotage. Check that out. It's a lot to get from her. She's an incredible artist making incredible music, and if you're not on her, listen to it. She may end up becoming a new favorite of yours. Who knows? But in any case, that will end this first episode of Play One Podcast. And man, I'm trying to put out new music. It's not new music, but of course. But I'm trying to put out a lot of stuff on my channel. I'm really trying. Life happens, and sometimes you just get unmotivated, but I'm really trying. That's why I'm starting this, because I really want to talk about music and get into music, talk about that, and just do the thing or whatnot. But hopefully, I will try to have out the box office podcast, box office talk, bring that back. Take One podcast, bring that back. Have another episode 2. Have the review podcast, which I call Reviewer Cast or Reviewers Cast. I'll find it out next week, but put out more reviews and stuff like that. So stay tuned for next week. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Hey, before you guys leave, make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. And you see that little bell? Make sure you hit that to turn on your notifications. That way you'll be notified for anything that appears on my channel. Hope to see you guys next time. Peace out.